mics, now it's yours.
I know. I made it look fabulous.
And you gotta give it to Greg when you're done with it. Ryan's Greg.
Hey, I found another one, exact same model and everything. Turns out my cousin-in-law has it. I'm telling you, he blew the engine out of it, so I'm like, I know where I can get an engine.
There's really good people in the north. You know, people come to visit and they always talk when they go about the people that they've met. It's big, but it's small. So, you know, like they can't just be like, oh, whoa, you're gay or you're trans, I don't like you. Because up here it's small and people judge you on the content of your character. And if it's -40 and you're stranded on the side of the road, are you gonna stop and help me or not?
It looks like a rock!
It's a really beautiful community up here, and I love being out in nature and being connected with the land. It's just so peaceful to be out here. Yeah, we came ice fishing with some friends, so we have Rodney, Princess Mike. We have 2 Mikes, so one of them had to be Princess, I don't really know why. And Minot, and my partner Ryan, of course. Minot is, I met Minot actually my first year in the Women's Hockey League. She was on my team, and that's how I met my brother Luke. So yeah, Minot has been one of the best supports I've had, and Luke is just so beautiful. And he, like when I was having top surgery, he had a cookie stand and a lemonade stand, and he sold cookies and lemonade to raise some money to help me cover costs. When I was contemplating coming out to my friend group, I was definitely nervous, and I was actually more nervous about the guys like Rodney and Mike, who were like born and raised in the Yukon, and you know, I was a lesbian identified and they were cool with that, but I was definitely concerned that it's not something they'd maybe been exposed to or that they would understand, and I was really worried about it. And I told like my closest friends, like Headley first, and then I told the guys, and they were like, okay, cool. Like, didn't really faze them. They didn't really ask any invasive questions. They would definitely give me a hard time a little, like, well, I'm gonna have to teach you how to do an oil change if you're gonna be a guy. And I was like, okay, well, you know, if you're gonna be a guy, I'm gonna teach you how to be like respectful to women and and how to really honor their spirits and lift them up. And they'd kind of be like, huh. So it was, you know, it was kind of beautiful and fun, and it doesn't seem to be a problem to anybody. They don't really care, because like I said, up here it's more about the content of your character. You know, basically, if you're not a jerk, don't be a jerk. And if you're not a jerk, no one really cares. I was really anxious and nervous about acceptance and scared every time I came out, and had a lot of anxiety around it. And when the Women's Hockey League just made the trans inclusive policy on their own accord, it powerfully transformed my life. When you have 100 people who surround you in community and love and support and lift you up, you hang on to that. Yeah, actually at my birthday we were at a cabin and we asked everybody around the fire, what is the most significant moment of your life? And that was one of them, and I was almost in tears. Their love and acceptance changed my life forever. And it allows me to do the advocacy work, and it allows me to have the confidence to do the all genders and to have the difficult conversations and to take the risks that we need to take to advance our rights, because I know that all I have to do is go to the rink and I'm surrounded by love. What's the temperature now? Where is it? Yeah, it's cool.
Got up to -16 today.
Minus what?
16.
Somebody's Facebook post was that. Yes, so this is our league game tonight. We're the Burnt Toast Fireballs, and we're playing against HVAC Tech, which is the blue team. They're pretty fast. And yeah, this is like my favorite place in the world. I knew I was going to announce that I was transgender, so in our league, it's a women's league, Whitehorse Women's Hockey Association, and I was worried about getting kicked out. I announced on Facebook via a YouTube video that's probably still up there actually, that didn't identify as female, and I was going to transition, and I posted it and waited, and within minutes, good old Val Drummond, just a rugged bush lady with a heart of gold, and posted on it right away and said, "Tell me this doesn't mean you can't play hockey with us anymore, big question mark." And all my fears and everything just dissipated, and it just went from there. And at the time, unbeknownst to me, the board held a meeting, and shortly thereafter they announced their transgender inclusion policy, which went national because it set a precedent, because they said anybody who was assigned female at birth or identified as one can play. But when we did, we also added a bunch of inclusive options, because I said, you know, what about intersex people? Like, intersex people face the same barriers to sport that we do. So it was a lot of work, and I worked with Chris a lot, and Chris was so awesome to work with and informed, and had some really important ideas from their knowledge from being in Vancouver, and they just, you know, brought a lot to the conversation, and I learned a lot from Chris, and I'm hoping to see that policy voted in maybe at the end of this year, and you know, just keep moving forward.
My name is Chris Anderson. I've been playing hockey for 23 years, and I started playing at age 7. I moved to Whitehorse a year ago January, so just over a year ago.
Oh, get it out!
I love it. Yeah, came up for a year and no thought of moving back yet. So when sort of I moved here, and Chase and I started discussing that maybe the policy could use an updated draft, because there were no trans voices in the creation of the policy, and I think that's really important to have when you're creating any sort of policy, is to actually talk to the people that are going to be affected by that policy. So updating the language a little bit to be inclusive of non-binary people as well, but also to focus more on one's chosen gender as opposed to just their, say, assigned sex at birth. People are sort of aware of trans issues, but non-binary are sort of outside the spectrum, or outside of the binary. People are sort of new to that sort of terminology or that idea. So I don't really talk about it a lot in my day-to-day life, except sort of once I've gotten to know people and become closer to them, I sort of start talking about that sort of stuff. But I recently did speak at a little forum that Chase organized on being sort of non-binary, and I did that with a two-spirit person, so sort of that dual perspective. But I think there's still a lot of learning to be done. The community in Whitehorse, I find, is open to that learning, which is great and a good first step.
And I use he and him as pronouns. I'm Cascadena, and I also identify as Two-Spirit. Two-Spirit is a First Nations term for First Nations people who happen to be bridging the gap between the genders, the sexes. You know, I've lived part of my life. As I say when I go to meetings, I've walked part of my life in the world of women, and I walk part of my life in the world of men. The Casca Dena, Sa'a, which means long time ago. Sa'a Dena, long time ago people. You know, husband and wife have a bunch of girls, a bunch of daughters, and they're thinking about it and they're going, we need some hunters. But she said, finished having kids. So they take their little girls who are 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere in there, and they set up a dance, a blanket dance. And on one blanket they have all the men's tools. Another blanket they have all the women's tools. A knife, but this one's made for men and this one's made for women. So put them down. And these girls, there's a drummer going and they're praying, and the girls go around and they dance through these blankets. And they're listening for a tool to call to them. And if they happen to pick up a tool from the men's blanket, from that moment until they choose, they are raised as a man. So they've been raised up as a boy, and they become a man, and at that point when they're considered an adult, those people can decide if they're going to live the rest of their life as a man and be given a wife and orphan children to raise as their own, or they can go back and start living life as a woman. So they had that choice. Some people did go back and become women. Some chose to stay. My uncle called them sister boys, and he also calls me a sister boy. So it's just a term. It's sort of a term of endearment in my mind, because I was a sister at one point in time. Now I'm a boy. There are no meetings for trans or two-spirit people in Ross, because I'd be sitting there having them by myself. Yes, we meet every night at my place. No, I stay connected to the trans community through Yukon Trans Facebook, which I'm sort of the administrator to, and I do come into town for the all Genders Yukon groups that when I can afford and can make it in, I'll go into the meetings. I'd like to say I'm one of the founders, but I'm sort of an associate. Chase came up with the idea for all Genders Yukon, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'll go for it. This would be great. So I was able to make it in for the very first meeting last year. I made it in for a couple more. It's really important. It's wonderful and lovely to see other people who are walking a similar path, and there's that chance just to breathe out and not worry about what somebody's thinking, if they're really freaked out about your gender identity, or are you coming on to them or whatever. It's just people hanging out and being themselves. And there's just so much easygoing energy instead of the tension that you sometimes feel when you're not quite sure of the group you're with. So yeah, it's really great to have that. I'm really grateful again to Chase for starting it and inviting me in.
I identify as gender retired, to coin a term from Ray Spoon and the book Gender Failure, but non-binary, gender neutral. I've lived here 7 years. All Genders Yukon is a community-based group that it's the first kind of group I've gone to with the specific gender-based support network. So that's an important part of the community here for me, because I've been able to accept myself more and feel more accepted in a community, and it feels really good. My community in the South, at the time I identified more as a lesbian, but I didn't really. There was always this unexplored part of myself that I needed to reach. Even decades ago, people I worked with and a couple of friends, I'd say, well, I'm really a gay man, in a lesbian body or something, and they said, yeah, we know. And then, like over 20 years ago, I started to feel more connected to a part of myself that I wanted to express more physically, and I just really didn't feel that I was, identified as male or female. And then when I made that decision, I decided to change my first name. My first name was Helen, and now it is Len. I wanted to keep it easy for people. That I was still the same person. It's just I was more comfortable with the choices I've made. There will always be something in the communication that has some gender influence in it due to our society. I would be more comfortable in an environment where that wasn't the predominant, that wasn't as binary. I am comfortable in Whitehorse because it is not as binary a place, or the circles that I keep anyway, I feel I'm more comfortable in. But that's one of the reasons I was comfortable moving here as well, because, you know, if I could go into a place with my heavy winters and my pack boots on and kick them off and walk around in stocking feet at a restaurant and feel comfortable and not feel uncomfortable, which, you know, I thought that was pretty good.
That's where we'll do all like the pinks and the purples up above there.
Yeah, you can bring some like green tie with it.
Yeah, and then sweep it. It'll be as dark, but it'll all make sense.
Every time I show up, I'm more and more into my transition, right? And I look different than the last time you saw me, right? Because this one, I don't even think I was on hormones at this time. Or it just started for this one. Because I look back on that picture, remember you had me turn sideways like 10 times? You were so excited about it.
Yeah, that was the first one, and then from there.
This one, then that one, and then we did these two at the last session. So this is the fourth session, yeah. No, this one started because I was actually going to celebrate, I wanted to celebrate like my transition, my journey. And I'd actually sent you something else. And then you're like, no, I'm not really into doing it. And then I was like, this is what I want to do, because when I was living in Mayo, there was an elder that I was friends with. Yeah, and so she was like a young elder at the time, and she was like, I was gonna go out in the bush, and like, and I'm like, I was all worried, right? Because like I was out of the city and stuff. So she's like, when you go out in the bush, she's like, grizzly bear hasn't seen man, and she's like, so if grizzly bear sees you or smells you in the backcountry, like, Grizz will come up and he'll do one of two things, and she's like, and it doesn't really matter what you do in that moment. And I'm like, well, what? And she's like, well, they've never seen men, so Grizzly's either gonna walk up and be like, what is this? And come by your camp, and he'll say, hi, and Grizz says, hi, hi, man, and you just say, hi, Grizz, grandfather energy, thank you for visiting me, this is my camp, this is my food, you can't have any, but it was nice to see you, and have a good day. And she says, Grizz goes on his day. Or Grizz comes up, and she goes, and you do stupid white man thing, and you shoot guns, and you let off bear bangers and fireworks, and you scare it. And it goes running into the bush, and it's scared. And she's like, but it doesn't matter what you do, because either way, Grizz is leaving your camp. But it's what happens the next time Grizz sees man in the bush. That your actions will determine whether Grizz says hi and goes on his way, or whether Grizz comes into the camp and, like, kills you. So that's why I wanted this one, because like, as a trans person in society, like, people ask you all these like invasive questions, like 2 minutes after they meet you, they're like, tell me about your genitals. And I'm like, would you ask everyone you meet in 2 minutes about their genitals? Like, tell me about your genitals, Steve.
I don't think we ever went over that.
No, we haven't covered that yet. Maybe later. But, and like some people like come at you and like, accuse you of being like homophobic, like they're just transphobic, right? And they like tell you to go die and stuff. And so like even in the face of all that stuff, like I try to remember that like I'm usually the first trans person someone's met. And so like how I interact with you and how I treat you, even if you're being rude to me or asking me invasive questions, like how I treat you is going to ultimately determine how the next trans person they run into is treated. And so every person I meet and talk to, whether they're treating me with dignity or respect or not, they're either going to walk away from interacting with me and thinking like, hey, maybe I'm wrong, or, you know, that's not a bad dude. So, like, I'd rather make people who are allies or like just think we're like, they don't have an issue, you know what I mean? Like just think, oh yeah, I know this guy and he's pretty cool, so no big deal, right? So that's why like I got that to remind me always of that.
My name is Zoe Armstrong, and I prefer her and she. And I'm an art therapist here. I work mostly with trauma, grief, and loss, and then I have a population that I work with of transgender, gender nonconforming individuals. I started working with transgender, gender nonconforming probably in 2015, and it just happened. So I wasn't sort of looking to do that, but then I just started working with this population, and then realizing the daily experience and struggles, and then I just started getting more and more clients, and I really enjoy the work. And now I'm hoping to bring more exposure and education to the public by completing my thesis and working with the use of art therapy with transgender, gender nonconforming. It came from having an open mind, putting yourself out there, wanting to be part of, like, okay, I'll come to an All Genders Yukon meeting. I will, support this, go here and really learn and immerse yourself, and to be kind of like as involved respectfully as I can be. People don't realize the percentage of the population. Like when I'm working, like I probably have around a decent percentage, I would say, of my caseload. I would say 20% is transgender right now, but I do focus a little more there. And I don't think people realize how many people are, right? There's just not that conversation that happens because it never comes into someone else's life unless it's like a personal way. But I think with this work, which is a big struggle that transgender, gender nonconforming work with, is when they do want to seek out support, they end up having to educate their counselor or educate their doctor or educate someone else. So this has become a bit of a passion of mine in the sense of I want people to be able to access everything that everyone else accesses without having to educate as well.
That's Allison. Yeah. You know what? She never told us. She shot that whole video and never told us that her last name was Gay. And we found out after, and I emailed her, and I was like, your last name is Gay? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, why didn't you tell us this whole time? You're filming like a LGBTQ video, and you don't even mention your last name. I guess we kind of started falling in love over my tee shots. Like, I would come over and Ryan would do them because I did them myself for like the first 3 months, and I was like looking forward to them. And then like after a while, it gets hard like to convince your brain to like stick a pointy needle into you. And she has extensive medical training in the military. Like, I didn't know that you had worked at that clinic.
Yeah. That
was facilitating transitions, like the first clinic in the military that opened. You were assigned as a medic. She was telling me later like that she had actually supported a lot of the like first medical transitions in the military, and I was like, I did not know that at all. And there's a lot of really, really powerful trans people who served our country, and Ryan will never tell me which one she knows because she's super confidential, but I always wonder, like, I wonder if she knows the trans guy who became the judge. I wonder if she knows like all these trans people that are doing really awesome things in the country.
The transition from A to B was completely covered by the military, and also consistent medical care from one of our military doctors, as well as specialists. So surgery was covered, hormones were covered. And I was really privileged to be part of some of that care, and just really amazed at the strength of these individuals.
Thanks, honey.
Mwah. Love you.
Love you.
My name is Kate White, and I am the elected member for Takini Copper King, so I'm a member of the Legislative Assembly of Yukon. Kind of in more recent years, in any transgender, non-conforming, non-binary, two-spirited, it's really been an eye-opening experience because there's so many things that we take for granted. So really, ultimately, when it comes down to it, trans rights are human rights, and they've been trampled on, and they continue to be trampled on. And there's a lot of things that I think as soon as government starts to lead, then the community will naturally follow. But All Genders Yukon has been a really, I think, a phenomenal driving force of bringing this bigger conversation of trans, non-binary, two-spirited folks forward. Because there is a population here of people who are born under one sex that identify as another or something completely different. And there still needs to be space, and there still needs to be respect, and there still needs to be services by government for anyone, no matter how they self-identify. So, I mean, you've got to full credit to organizations like All Genders Yukon who've really had those hard conversations in a more public space. There's 2 pieces of legislation in the Yukon that absolutely need to be amended right now. And there's a couple other ones that we should definitely be working at polishing up and making sure that they're more accessible. But there's 2 main pieces of legislation that need to change in Yukon to make this a non-issue. And that would be the Vital Statistics Act and the Human Rights Act.
I'm Brent Botting, and I work with the Yukon government. I'm a policy analyst with Highways and Public Works. Occasionally I have the opportunity to influence policies that might affect the LGBT community, so I'm happy to be here for that, because I don't think I'd be able to do that if I was just, somewhere in some big tower and with the federal government entrenched doing something that has nothing to do with anything that matters to me. So it's really cool being part of a small government where you kind of have tendrils going everywhere. You can be part of something pretty great in a smaller community. So I think the people are amazing here. I've found a very friendly, for the most part, community. And I love how, as much as it's complicated when I work in government for the smaller community dynamic, it's also very heartwarming to be in a community that is so close-knit, and basically you're only 1 degree away from knowing everybody here. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so this is a high school artwork that I did, probably in grade 9 or 10, and yeah, it's just a self-portrait of how I saw myself. Unfortunately, the dark side, of course, being a side I wished it wasn't. Well, that was part of my exploration of this. Was like, I'm not really recognized Métis. I was originally through an organization in BC, but it didn't become one of the official recognized organizations in this newest push for exclusion, essentially, in Métis organizations. It's like, we don't get recognized formally. Again, it's similar to not being recognized for who you are, who you feel you are. So before I left out east, I had a lot of friends who were aware and supportive of me. I really wanted to make sure that wherever I landed with my career or my next job, that I would have that kind of support. When I got here, I started trying to put out feelers to see if there's anything out there. Nothing really came back for the first year. And then I saw, I think it might have been an article or something in a newspaper. So I reached out to the contact, and it ended up being Chase. And Chase said, yeah, we're holding a group, or just a fairly new group. And he invited me to join the group, and I went and joined them.
Tristana is amazing. Tristana is going to change the world, I feel. Tristana is happy-go-lucky, very, very girly. Like I said, she's going to be the change that the world needs to see. Well, we kind of always knew something was different with her from a toddler, I would say 2. She was always wearing or wanting to wear my dresses and my shoes and her sister's jewelry, and always wanting to play with things typical for a girl, dolls, and loved the color pink and purple. And then when she was about 3, I was wondering what was going on. So we were in Superstore and I brought Barbie and Ken out, both dolls, showed them, and I asked her who she was, and she pointed at Barbie. And at that time I didn't really know about transgender. So what I said was, actually, you're Ken because you have a penis. I didn't know at that time that girls can have penises. And so as soon as we were able, we got her the dress. She put it on and she just twirled around, and she just was like this, I don't know, hard to explain, just like this glow and this happiness and this confidence. And since then, just a total, like as I told you what she was like as a toddler and a baby, totally opposite. Like just like a blossoming and this new person emerging. That's when we knew, or I knew, this was the right thing to do.
In fact, she had a friend over, and this was before she transitioned at school, and she told her friend that, I'm going to be transitioning at school, my mom and dad are working on it. So this was like, what, a week or 2 before we, you know, and she was coming to school, and of course the teacher was like, oh no, what do I do? Because she was coming more feminine each day. So no, I don't think she was nervous.
She was ready before any one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was ready. Chase came to the Sunday school and they had a little sharing circle where all the kids were in a circle, and they talked about, they didn't use the word gender, but their spirit, what inside do they feel like they are? And they went around the circle, and she said girl, and everyone was very warm and friendly, and so it went so well at church. She was ready to do it the very next day at school. And kids are fabulous. It's never really the kids that are the issue. So within 5 minutes after, they're like, Tristana, Tristana. And even the teacher said they were asking her all to play at recess, and it was nothing to the kids.
We are going to the transversary together.
We're going to Tristana's transversary. It's a tea party. We're going to the United Church to have it. That's where she first transitioned, roughly a year ago today. We've invited everyone that's been supportive of her over the course of the last year. And it was actually a name that we had heard through our All Genders group. One of the individuals had mentioned a transversary, so the day of which you transition. So we thought it would be great to celebrate it. She's excited. She really enjoys parties. So.
My name is Beverly Brazier, and I'm the minister here. I'm the ordained minister here at White Horse United. Yes, we're very excited. So this is Tristana's transversary. So it's a celebration because it's just over a year now that she came out as Tristana, and she came out first here at the church, and we're just so we love her and her parents, and we're so excited to celebrate with her, and because it's quite a journey, as you can imagine. And to be able to walk with her on that journey is such a privilege. Well, I think she knows, and her family knows, that this is a very open place in that way. Of course, you can never tell for sure, but we were confident that people would say, it's kind of like having blue eyes or brown eyes, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, okay, that's who Tristana is, and we love her and always loved her, and I think people she herself clearly felt comfortable, and so did her parents, and this congregation really came through for her. Yeah. I've been just overwhelmed by her courage, you know, to be who she is. It's one of the best things that's ever happened in my ministry, just watching that. And if that's not a sign of the Spirit at work, I don't know what is. And that the community would gather around her and say, praise God for this and for that little girl. It's amazing.
Just remember our regular meeting rules, which is confidentiality, and we'll do our individual shares. Everybody has the same amount of time. If you don't want to talk, that's okay too. We'll still just hold space, and as regulars, this is pretty common. So I'm like, I don't even need to tell you, but we will. So we'll go with 2-minute shares for tonight. We'll do that if you really knew me, and does anybody want to volunteer to go first?
If you really knew me, you would know that I just celebrated my 2nd anniversary for top surgery. Yeah, so 2 years ago.
Wow.
2 years ago, I was flat out on the couch with my horseshoe pillows, not moving. What else? Living in my small community, I have a tendency, I realize, to forget that I am trans. Because, you know, people respect me, and they're now coming to me and asking me, you know, to help out with this project, to help out with that project. Things are going good.
Awesome. It's good to see you.
Yeah. Per usual, you get to pick who you throw under the bus by sending them.
Look at him tell you.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks.
He always picks you.
I know he does. He always picks on me. We're good. All right, so, well, if you really knew me, you would know that I am absolutely stoked to be here. This group has meant quite a bit to me as far as feeling connected to this community, and it gives me great confidence that we're progressing and getting somewhere. I'm also seeing some progress in my own professional world in government, and that's also very exciting. I think we're making a lot of great steps and strides in government, and I don't think we would be doing that in government if it weren't for the folks in this group. So yeah, I'm just really, really happy to be part of this right now.
All right. This past weekend, we had a celebration for our daughter, Tristana. It's been 1 year since her social transition. And it was amazing, the transversary. Tons of people. Lots and lots of people came and showed lots and lots and lots of support for her. And it went wonderful, I thought. So that was very, very good to see that she has a ton of community support and a lot of people out there that support her.
If you really knew me, you would know that I'm a party planner. I love to throw parties, and I've done it basically for my 2 older kids also. But this party was even more special, I guess, and different, and I had a lot of questions from people about it, so it was nice being able to share what a transversary actually is. So in a very small town of Whitehorse, we have a fairly big group of people behind us and behind her, so it's amazing. I'm just really, really overwhelmed with all the support. Yeah, it was just an amazing experience from the beginning to the end. Really, really happy about that. I don't know that it'll be annual, but it was definitely my first and our first, and she had a blast.
Last time I saw you, you were tied up in a ribbon to another child. What happened after that?
I was untied.
You don't remember?
Uh-oh. And yeah, things are really, really busy. Through all genders, it's just like not enough time in the day. Back to working, like subbing full time, so it was okay when I wasn't working because I had 40 to 60 hours a week to devote to meetings at any time, but now I'm like only available after like 3, and it's just been like slammed since I started back in January. So it's great being back in the class. I spend a lot of time at Tristana's school actually, so I feel really safe with the staff there, which is great. I think the biggest thing I've noticed lately is I'm really feeling hope for the first time in a while, and I didn't realize how much I had surrendered to just feeling like the government was just an immovable object, and the progress we were making was like just chipping away with like a toothpick into a glacier, like chip, yes, success, but realizing how hard the struggle to get that was, and then seeing the few things that are shifting now and how quickly they're shifting, and how fast they're shifting without us having to be the driving force with these big emails and like insistence, has just been so beautiful and relieving. And so yeah, for me right now, mostly I'm just feeling a lot of hope, and it's cautious hope, because I'm a little scared to hope too much, because I don't know how I will be emotionally if they don't end up working out. I'm scared of how that would be for me, but it's nice to feel hope.
I'm doing well, and I'm very grateful for all Genders Yukon and the people that are here and the community that I feel a part of because of those connections. And going to Tristana's tea party was on Sunday. I was able to get an extended lunch from work, and that's been the highlight of my week. Because there was a lot of happiness there, and I felt very touched when I went in. So, a very, very nice thing to feel a part of, and to be part of a community that can celebrate such a wonderful day for Tristana.
I just want to appreciate everybody who had the courage to participate in this project, because I know what each of us went through to factor in the pros and the cons and the risks to our lives and exposing ourselves, and what the potential ramifications could be. And so each one of you looked inside and decided that it was more important to move towards something than to hide away from it. And there's nothing wrong with protecting ourselves, and that's never a bad thing. But just to see this group move from really, really, really private and shy away to being comfortable in who we are, and also feeling supported enough to step out and be open about it, I think is always a beautiful thing. And it's just been a total honor to witness all the different individual journeys to get to this place. And yeah, I just feel really honored to sit amongst this group of people. It's a pretty impressive group with our collective weirdness.